Well, good morning, everybody. So, welcome to our morning's breakfast seminar. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I'm going to host this morning's event. I'll just start slowly so we give everyone a chance to arrive, get settled. Hoping that Chris, Dave, Craig, you can all hear me loud and clear. Perhaps someone could just give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, sounds good, Angus.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Yeah, so once again, welcome everyone to this morning's breakfast seminar. I hope you're all sat with your cup of tea or coffee, or as suits your the need at the moment. Apologies that we can't provide that in this year of online events, but equally it's fantastic to be able to get so many people together to have a conversation such as this. So this event's hosted by Marjolo in partnership with Skore. Thanks very much to the teams at both for organising and promoting. And so, by way of a little bit of background, Marjolo and Skore are both we're both passionate about business transformation. Our raison d'etre is helping our clients do things better, quicker, make themselves fit for purpose for the so-called digital age that we live in. We talk a lot about digital transformation, and of course, that in a way leads into the topic for this morning, which is bridging the gap. In this case, bridging the gap between businesses, business needs, and the communicating those needs with the dev team that's tasked with implementing them. How do we do that? So it's not a new question. We hope that Chris and Dave, our two main protagonists or advocates this morning, can shed some new light on that. So in a moment I'll introduce Dave and Chris, but just to say the order of play here is that they will give us a quick intro to the subject, and then we'll open up to the sort of main event, which is a panel discussion with everyone, which I'll host. Please do ask questions. You can use the chat box to do that. If you want to test that, do so now. Ask a question at any time, and I will, in the course of the Q&A, raise those questions. I'll repeat them so everyone can hear it. I might not do it immediately. I'll pick the right time in the course of the thread. And also just note that you have our little video box pops up of us speaking, which you can move around if it's in the wrong part of your screen. So I think that's all the sort of logistics, so to speak. So to introduce Dave and Chris, Dave is the founder and CEO of Marjolo. Chris is the Chief Commercial Officer and one of the founders of Skore. And I'm going to hand over to them now, starting with Dave, to introduce the subject. So good morning, everyone, again, and over to you, Dave.
Good morning, Angus. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. So hopefully we will rattle through a few things. I've got a nice little demo to show shortly, and then, as Angus said, get into a good Q&A, which is a good way to start the morning. So what I wanted to start off with was just a very quick background around Marjolo and what we do. So we exist to help clients, multiple industries and geographies, realise digital transformation. It is that simple. And I think the important thing to note is, what do we mean by digital transformation? Well, that's quite simple. We mean about enabling business value and outcomes. It's about the practical steps forward to harness the technology when it's right to do so. Now, transformational efforts have accelerated, not just this year. This has been happening for a few years now. And the focus is about blending continuous improvement and transformation to realise ROI in weeks and months, not years. That the old adage of these big programs taking years and years to deliver any value to the business are gone. It's about breaking things down into smaller chunks, bite-sized pieces, and getting that delivery moving. Skore for Marjolo has become a core element and critical in supporting us to operate quickly and efficiently. And as Angus said, in this webinar, the focus is on bridging the gap between those business outcomes and delivering the technology that enables them. So just move on a slide there, Chris. So we know this gap exists. Everyone knows this gap exists. And over the years, various methods and solutions have developed, but the common questions clients ask still remain. design is challenging. Distance working, people not in the office, can't do post-it note exercises and brown paper exercises. Again, not a unique thing for 2020. It has accelerated forward, but we've had teams working, dispersed teams working for many years, having these challenges. And there is still the old argument of, do we need process design and requirements? The need of, how do we articulate the business need to deliver the outcome? We know that timelines can overrun on projects. They can take too long, and it is still an issue. And what this leads to is transformational efforts become just about implementing the technology, getting the thing over the line, getting it live. But in recent years, that is getting better. As we do break these projects down into smaller pieces, we are seeing more value being delivered. But regardless of that, as Angus said at the start there, development teams do work with different tools, have different skill sets. They don't have time to read lots of the classical documentations, whatever tools we're using to capture that information, and they're still not always including the conversations. What this leads to is projects can still be eye-watering in terms of cost. We've got an uplift in resources sometimes quoted that isn't always really needed. Maybe just skip on there, Chris. So part of what we wanted to talk about this morning was how can we better articulate and answer those questions. Now with Marjolo and Skore, what we're interested in is being able to truly understand the customer value powered by the remote design, using Skore to capture that remote design, getting the right people and brains together wherever they are, so we can capture the business intent. And whilst we capture the intent and the process flows, we can really capture simply the requirements and align those to the development work going on. We'll have a demo in a moment to talk that through. At the same time, from our Marjolo perspective, we will always advise clients, use the capabilities you already have, whether it be people, process, data, technology, and the toolings. That helps accelerate delivery, helps decrease the learning curves of using new solutions just to deliver the new technology that's required, and drive improved collaboration. If people are using what they already know and are familiar with, let them use them. Our job is to make sure those tools integrate with each other so we can help those things collaborate. And over time, this will leave a legacy of increased skills and knowledge, which will reduce project costs as you go. Okay. Now, it is early days, but we are seeing results. It's quite a simple equation, really. Quicker delivery plus more efficient delivery equals business outcomes being realised. It's about increasing the confidence for the business that projects will deliver day in, day out, and at the same time removing the friction and the barriers wherever possible between the teams so we can achieve that delivery. Now, to give you an idea, we've been working like this for a while now, and we are seeing up to 50% increase in project delivery times in terms of speed delivery. That in turn is making them more efficient, which is reducing the cost. And you're looking at up to 36% cost reduction in those projects. Now, that all sounds wonderful and great. And I think what I'm going to do now is hand over to Chris for the demo, because this will start people's thought process. When we get into the Q&A, we can really start having a conversation about how this really works for you. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Dave. Let me just get my screen on, and so hopefully you can see a Skore process. Good news this morning. This is going to be a very quick demo, just really showing you, so we can sort of add a bit of colour to the panel and Q&A that's going to be coming up. So this isn't going to be an in-depth demonstration of how Skore can rapidly capture processes and analyse and all the other great stuff. This is really focused on what we're talking about in terms of bridging that gap. So what you can see here is we've got a simple process around employee expenses. We can annotate it, we can add colours and the like, and so when you're using Skore Connect, you're reusing the rapid process discovery, the ease of use that comes with Skore out of the box. The big difference is when you click on the attachment panel. So this is letting you add additional information on here. So you run your workshops with the SMEs, and then you enrich it with the implementation, the agile development information. So you can come into edit. We can add this information in here, and we've got drop downs. It's basically guiding the user through adding what we're calling epics and stories, and this is customizable, or you can select an option depending on your chosen methodology for development. So you build this process out. Obviously, you know, you've got the hierarchy in Skore, so you can start to capture very complex processes in an easy to understand way. And we can click on things like here, and we can see we've gone from an epic, we've got a story, but it's just overlaying that information against the process that you've discovered. So when we dip into the world, when we cross that bridge, I've got an Azure DevOps project, which I can open. It says, I'm just going to view mode. So this takes me into my project. I've set up Skore Connect to put it all into a backlog. So if I go into my backlog here, we can see a structure which looks similar to the process. Of course, it's a simple process, but it's still representing the hierarchy. So if I say we have log individual expense items, so I can open this up, look at the detail in here, but actually let's look at one of the stories we had. So as an employee, I want to log into the app so I can see my dashboard. So it's reusing the components we've captured in Skore and the extra information in the attachment panel. And again, not going through everything, but you can see here we've got things like the roles being brought across, we've got the descriptions, the risks. It's also looking at the structure of the process and showing you any other related epics or stories in that flow. So it's giving you a lot more context. And the real beauty of this is as well, we can click on this link here and we can round trip back into the process. So if I'm a developer, I've been assigned this story or this epic, I can go back to the process and understand what information, or the context of this item. So I can click on here. Are there any other attachments in here which give me information? So actually, you know, we've got a wireframe mockup. It might be a list of variables, or whatever information that might be relevant to this activity here. I'd also see any comments if people have been commenting and adding their thoughts against this process. So you're bringing those two worlds together, again, joining that bridge, so that you've got that single view of what needs to be developed, yeah, in context of those business outcomes. And that's all I'd like to show you this morning.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Chris.
Pleasure.
Fabulous. So thank you to both of you. I'm going to open up the panel discussion now. And as a reminder to all our attendees, absolutely please chuck your questions in, and I will raise them either straight away or as suits with the flow of the conversation. And thank you very much for Nick, who sent the first one in already, which I'll absorb in a moment and ask in a second. Excellent. So just to get us started, I'll start with Dave, and then we'll jump into the specifics. Dave, you and Chris have presented quite a lot there. I don't think anyone's saying this is sort of some sort of new rocket science. It sort of comes across as sort of bringing together, in effect, best practice between sort of consultancy. I don't mean that in the sort of commercial term, but in the sort of business analyst term, perhaps, and software. What is it about this that's, you know, why is this game changing? What's so important about what you and I mean, why should our audience take note of what you and Chris have presented here?
Yeah, so I would go back to my opening statement in terms of you're right, Angus. You know, this isn't a new issue. You know, various methodologies and tools have come along over the years. Some have been successful, some not so successful. But the very fact that we're still hearing the same questions and trying to solve the same challenges suggests that it's not quite fully hitting the mark. I think where we have got to between Marjolo and Skore, and the reason I think this is so exciting is the word I would actually use, is because we understand you've got the difference in the workplace in terms of business, operations, technical, all trying to work together. The tooling today predominantly is trying to move people in saying, here is a single collaboration tool that everyone should move to and work with. Whereas what we're saying is, why not let the people use the tools that are best for their context, for their needs, and integrate those things together so they interpret. We don't need a person to do that. We can do that with the tooling. get that right, that means we can translate those capabilities and support them with the technologies around, which means things like the BA role is still going to be really, really critical. But we're doing it across the pieces of information that are available, so folks can get on with doing the day job, not having to learn, all right, here's another new tool that I need to learn and grow with. So reducing that change curve and that understanding is really critical.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. And later on, I hope we'll hear more about sort of the genesis of this and how, you know, some of the sort of live experiences the two of you have had that's led to the development of this integration. Perhaps we can just start at the beginning and think about the discovery phase. Clearly, capturing the needs is one of the sort of is at the beginning of tempting to say the most important bit. Clearly, there are other factors, but Chris, how important is that phase, and how do you present that in a sort of form the dev team can act upon?
So discovery phase is hugely important in any project, be it technology change, reorganization. And what we were seeing is a lot of companies not doing it or rushing it or just spending too long doing it. So with Skore, it's really about cutting through the complexity. If you can do that, you can do it quicker. People are engaged. It's simple, and that's really the foundation of any kind of project using Skore, is to keep it simple and available to all, so you can capture what is either going on in a business or what needs to go on in a business. And then if you're then trying to, and again today we're talking about engaging with dev teams and more technical people. How do we take those clear and complete processes and translate that into something that can be developed? And I mean, there's a couple of things. I think the first thing is to overlay the information on the same diagrams. So we're not creating a bunch of spreadsheets which are detached from what the people said in those workshops. We're appending it against the process. Often with the SMEs, because it's not complicated. Again, it's just understanding and translating their needs into something more technical. And then again, I think you've got to realize it's never going to be right. You can't do a discovery phase and expect to get 100% correct, especially from a business and a BA where they might not understand the technology fully. So I think the key bit, again, another key bit that we showed you there, is to loop it back. Don't expect to get it right. Just put those communications channels in, so people can either see the context in which it was created or understand who they need to go and talk to get that extra bit of detail or to get that clarification.
Okay, that's a very good point about how things change, of course, and I was going to pass that on back to Dave. Things do change. You come up with a plan, the facts, the events change, and so what you need to do changes. How important is that flexibility to be able to sort of react to events once you're embarked on the project, and how does this all help?
You're absolutely right, Angus. And I think a couple of things we talked about earlier in terms of change will always happen, and we certainly see that all the time, and I'm sure everyone listening does as well. Being able to manage that change as simply, quickly, and light touch as possible is really important. And I think part of that is helped by breaking projects down into smaller bite-sized chunks. How do you get those deliveries moving more iteratively in an ongoing fashion? Having a couple of simple ways of capturing those change aspects. So, for example, using the process work in Skore, once we've got a baseline there with a set of requirements, as Chris said, not only can different people using different tool sets that are integrated into Skore refer back to that to get the context of what's happening. If that context changes, it's very quick to then disseminate that out, get people to view where a change has happened, or even get people to voice an opportunity to make a change. So in this example, having it connected into Azure DevOps and having that development specs there, encourage the view of, well, actually, yes, we've captured this requirement. Having looked now in the context of the process flow, there is potentially another way we can do this. We can automate it better. We can achieve some better results. Having those two things talking to each other means we can very quickly share that information out, so the change isn't forgotten, and we don't have to go through a very elongated change control process. We can do it almost in real time, but it is captured, it's managed, and it's in a structured way. Therefore, we don't lose control.
Great stuff. Thanks, Dave. A couple of questions now coming from our audience. Just a couple to start with. From Helen Williams, is Skore fully integrated with Azure DevOps?
Good question. Probably need to understand what fully integrated means. So it's integrated in terms of what I showed you there. So it's bringing those items, those DevOps items into wherever you point it to. Is it complete? No, we're still developing, and so it's hugely valuable what I've showed you already. But we're looking and working with some customers to actually bring back information from Azure DevOps into Skore as well. So things like the status of items in that work queue, and then being able to display that into Skore. So being able to get that again, that they are connected, but we can improve it. So yes, it's integrated. We just got to fully is probably a little way off in terms of what that's going to look like. Okay,
so it's a journey in effect, and I guess feedback from clients and users is going to be critical in improving that integration. Go on.
No, exactly. Using our community of users to develop that and fine tune that is part of the way we work.
Okay, fantastic. And as you say, it's all about this emerging community of common interest. And talking of which, Lindsay Thorpe's asked, are you looking to integrate other dev tools such as Jira?
Short answer, yes, definitely. You can see all the concepts we've shown you here of Azure DevOps could lift and shift into a number of tools, be it the very robust ones like Jira, or even sort of lighter weight ones like Monday.com. So it's on the roadmap.
Okay, thanks. Excellent. And we've got some great questions coming out, so I'm going to continue with those. And obviously, when we've answered some questions, if they haven't fully answered or we've missed a point, please just add a follow-up question. So next question from Chris. I didn't see anything around ensuring that the elements interface correctly correct the age-old problem of Scrums not delivering what's needed by other Scrums.
Okay. I'll jump in on that one. Yes, you're right. What we are not saying is this is not the golden ticket that solves all. In terms of dependencies and how we map those dependencies, are always going to be a challenge. I think what we have shown is the ability to say, well, if I've got a suite of processes with my breakdown of epics and stories into themes, etc., and work items that we can move into our development side. How we then build our scrums, I would say you'd want to look at that and go, well, what is my scrum aiming to deliver? Is it the full end-to-end process? Is a scrum looking at component parts of those processes? So we can use that in and of itself to start talking around how do we manage the dependencies across those delivery teams. It is, as I said earlier, it is early days. There are ways we can do that, but I think a single tool to solve all is not the route through. I think we've talked here about Skore working with DevOps. There are other ways and other management practices we can use to start managing pieces across that life cycle of Scrum of Scrums or program management. And I think that's the way we talked about going on the journey of start building those things out. Well, this is an MVP at the moment. Let's knock one thing over, and then we can start building up to the next.
Great stuff. So follow-on question, in effect, from Nick Wadsley, which is a statement around, so digital transformation should not equal random acts of automation, clearly. Too many projects have misaligned goals, KPIs, non-aligned processes, and therefore subsequent systems around RPA to drive large-scale digital best practice transformation. So please describe how this issue is alleviated by Skore, in effect.
No, great question, Nick. I'll give it a shot. Dave, you can obviously chip in as you see fit. But we've seen this time and time again over the years, especially digital transformation is one of those terms. It may be a bit overused, but we've seen a lot of automation projects which were a huge success in the early days because they focused on a quick win. We've got a problem with our invoices, so let's go and fix that problem. And then they've had trouble scaling it because they haven't really understood the whole context, the whole as Nick says, those KPIs, those business goals. And that's where Skore lets you do that, because it's a hierarchical model. We recommend to our customers, start mapping as high as you can. Don't understand the invoice process. Understand the finance department. Don't understand the finance department. Understand the business end to end or the customer journey. And doing that lets you it lets you see the bigger picture, to see where are your issues, and you're getting feedback from people and driving that into your initiatives. But it also lets you build that pipeline of automation opportunities and ultimately quantify them as well. So you're not just picking things up because someone's shouting louder. You're comparing apples with apples. You're understanding what the likely benefits are going to be, and then using that to define what you focus on as a business.
Yeah. So I'll probably just jump in there as well, Chris, and mainly just reiterate a couple of those key points. Context is key, right? Getting the framework in place to understand the context, of what the business is trying to achieve. Always back to some of the classic Simon Sinek stuff, right? Always start with why. Why are you automating something in the first place? What is it you're trying to achieve? I think, and I'm sure Nick was saying as well, many people will start with, right, RPA, that's a thing. We know it's going to save money. Let's go and automate. But because they've not done that little bit of work to just, whether it be a few days or a week or so, just understand the context you're looking to automate in. Getting that right up front means you're more likely to achieve those automation benefits in the context of what the business is trying to achieve as a set of outcomes. It always reminds me of my grandpa was talking about last week. He was a carpenter, and he always used to talk around measure twice, cut once. And I think if we use it as a summary analogy, that is what we're trying to do. Measure twice, cut once, for the sake of a little bit of time up front in that discovery phase to get that context and get that scope right, massively increases your potential to achieve the outcomes that the business is after.
Okay. So it's all about common language and being able to be flexible. So follow-on question from this is from Joe Long. This is quite clearly a culture change for some businesses, in Joe's opinion. How can you help businesses see the benefits and get them to make the change they need to?
Well, I think some of this we touched on in the last answer, but part of it is, once you get that context, is then finding what's the first small piece to do. You can talk about it as much as we can. The sooner we can find a couple of small elements to move forward and start seeing those benefits. Having worked with a number of business owners, that's where I see the value. What are the things that are keeping them away? Can we make a positive difference in those small areas? And you start that journey going. Knock over one smaller domino, will knock over the bigger domino, etc., etc. And that is sometimes the easiest way of getting their head around. And as we talked about earlier, always doing it in the context of what is the business trying to achieve. So we should always be able to tie it back to an outcome. Should help move things forward. So to coin a phrase of a friend of mine, change the climate in order to change the culture. Okay,
fantastic. So now we've got a couple of questions on sort of client feedback and experience, if you like. And I know that some of this is a new journey, so we're breaking new ground as well. So one question from Mario Del Grosso is, what type of clients have used Skore Connect so far? Thank you. So Chris, over to you.
So the ones I've experienced predominantly have been BA teams, or at least kicking it off, which is quite interesting in itself. Where do you start crossing the bridge? Is it going to be the dev teams that pick it up, or the business analysis teams? And so I'd say it's biased towards the business analysis teams so far. We've also got some customers that have picked it up. They're trying it out for things that aren't around development, which surprised me. They were looking at tools like Azure DevOps to just manage any project better. You're running big transformation projects. There's probably an element of technology in there, but that's not what the focus is. And they're using Skore and Skore Connect to populate DevOps with a project plan, basically. The stories are related around change or process improvement and the like. And that was quite interesting. So and again, typically with Skore, as is typical with Skore, there's no one perfect customer. We've got one person bands and massive multinational companies using it. So it's a broad spectrum.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And a follow-on question to that, which I think speaks to the time we're in around COVID and how we're all doing so many more things online. Certainly one of the things I've noticed is that tools such as this really lend themselves to working interactively online. So I think this question a little bit feeds into that. So what feedback have you had? This is from Helen Williams. What feedback have you had from businesses or the SME using Skore while running a workshop? Now, I may have slightly misunderstood. I may have put the sort of remote working angle on that. She may mean more generally while running workshops. But again, I'm going to ask you, Chris, that question.
We've seen it time and time again, and even on the projects that we've had with Marjolo and the team, the feedback. Obviously, I'm a bit. You're going to say it, but the feedback's great. It's a very familiar pattern where you've invited people to a workshop. They're not quite sure why they've been there. Maybe the prep hasn't been done or the like, and they're very sitting there with their arms crossed, and reluctant to join in. But when they see the approach, the speed at which you're capturing, mapping at the speed of conversation and the simplicity in which you're capturing it, it really starts to engage people, and all of a sudden they start to relax, they start to input, they start to tell you, no, that's not the right activity, or that's not the right person, and all of a sudden, within the space of a couple of hours, especially on a remote workshop, that's a couple of hours workshop's a pretty good time frame for a remote workshop. You've got an awful lot out, and we hear things like, this is the first time I've seen my process, or God, crikey, I didn't really think we'd get this much done, and that drives into a lot of the other questions, like even Joe's one about culture. How do you change the culture? And it's about just listening to people, getting them engaged early on, and doing it in a form that they can engage with. This is fundamental to success.
Okay, excellent, thank you. And again, if Helen and others, if any angle they haven't, Chris or Dave hasn't answered, please do a follow up. I've got a follow-on question from that for both of you, which is, in the past, we've seen lots of methodologies created. We all can think of lots of different ones, which typically require an awful lot of training, seem to add a lot of complexity and rigidity to processes. Some of them almost like a sort of like a religion in themselves, which has to be applied rigorously. What is this different? I mean, are we really here in a new age where we're trying to sort of cut through that sort of stuff and make business consultancy tools, if you want to use that term, really easy to adopt and use? Perhaps Dave, you could answer that.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Angus. There have been a lot of methodologies and approaches over the years, and some are really good. I said this earlier. Some work really well, but people have been through the training. They've made that investment. It makes no sense or no logical sense to try and come along and say, right, forget all that. Here's a completely new approach, completely new methodology. Let's start again. Let's use what we already have and make it better. So this isn't about purely looking at the approach methodology. It's about making it as simple as we can. Use those methodologies and approaches you already have. Integrate them with tools you already have, or a couple of new tools like Skore to come along and bring it together, so we can increase that confidence, get the replication going, and that is as simple as it needs to be. We can sometimes get too hung up on the approaches and the methodologies. Use what's there, get everyone working the same way, point in the right direction, off we go.
Fantastic, excellent. Well, we're coming up to the end of our allotted time, and obviously thank everyone for the questions we've had so far. Chris and Dave, you'll be glad to know that Nick loved your answers earlier, and he loved the analogy you made. Just a final word from both of you as we wrap up. I'll start with you, Chris. Any sort of final words you want to share with us? As we go into as we go out into the next sort of phase of the evolution of this.
I think I'd urge people just to get up and try it. It's very accessible. It's there if you can sign up to a Skore trial. You can try it out, see if it's going to fit for your business, and very quickly you'd understand if it is going to or not. So don't procrastinate. Just get on and start trying to change. And kind of a bit of reflecting on some of the questions there about cultural change and how easy, and some of the feedback. Something I've reflected on over the last 6 months, especially, is those hidden BAs in an organization. You'll have the people that have that as a title and they have it as their project guidelines, but actually it's the people that have bubbled up to the surface that have just jumped onto these tools, not just Skore, but other tools, and push that change through their organization because they've had to, or they've seen the need for it, and they're the ones you really want to embrace and start to sort of really engage with, I think.
Okay, thanks, Chris, very much. Dave, a final word.
Final word? No, I think thank you everyone for their time. I think as we've talked about, and not to sound like a broken record, this is around bridging that gap, bringing things together rather than scrapping it all and starting again. If people take anything away from this, having that in your mind of you have the base components there. It's not around big wholesale, throw it all out, start again. Get moving in a matter of days, as Chris said. Let's not procrastinate. Take a positive step forward now.
Fantastic, excellent. Well, thank you both very much. I really enjoyed that Q&A, and I hope our audience has done too. Thanks again to our audience and those fantastic questions. I wish you all an energetic and successful day, and I look forward to being in touch with all of you soon. Thank you very much.